Happy Halloween, everybody! Dini here with another episode of El Presidio Project. To celebrate the holiday, my mom and I will be sharing a few stories with you, some of which no one outside of our family has ever heard before. We really enjoyed putting this together for you and hope you enjoy it. Coming up next, Los Cuentos Part 2.
Coming to you from the dark side of the old Pueblo, this is El Presidio Project, strange tales of Tucson and beyond.
Hey, what's up all? Here we are on this beautiful fall day, stuck at home because there's a plague outside. But that's not going to stop us from enjoying ourselves a little bit on Halloween. Now, those of you who are regular listeners to this podcast might remember my next guest. She was in the very first episode of this podcast, which was called Stratford. Why did I name it that? Well, Stratford is the street where we used to live. We lived in a home that had an interesting vibe, if you want to call it that. Basically, the episode was about the history of the neighborhood and the home, and the paranormal incidents that occurred there. You can find the episode on El Presidio Project's YouTube channel. But anyway, let's get started. Hi, Ma.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
As I said, you were in the Stratford episode. You spoke about a very scary thing that happened to you one night at our home. But that was just one of many. We could spend hours talking about all the weird things that happened there. But today we're going to focus on two specific incidents, which sort of go together. Then we'll move on to our other cuentos. Bueno?
Fine.
Okay, so let's take our listeners back to a late afternoon in 1978. We were at home. You and Nana were having a chat in the living room when I suddenly rushed in. I was running away from something, or at least that's what it looked like.
Correct. So what was so interesting is that you rushed into the living room and you wrapped yourself around the living room drapes. And so that caught our attention. And so I turned around, and so did Nana, and we both asked you, well, what's going on? What's wrong? And you kind of peeked out of the drapes there, and you pointed towards the kitchen family room area, and you said, man. You said it a couple of times. So then soon after that, you started jumping up and down. It almost appeared like somebody was playing with you, because you kept saying the word jump, and you were actually jumping. So that really scared us, because that was not normal. No male was in the room. It was just my mom and I. We were just having an afternoon conversation in the living room. So, so that scared us pretty much. So
then, I think as you said, shortly after that happened, you were in the kitchen area. And just to be clear, just to clarify, the area where I ran from into the living room that day that I apparently saw something, you were in that area when you saw something, soon after.
Yeah, it was soon after. I was in the kitchen. It was in the evening, and so I happened to turn around and look down, and I noticed, or I saw, a pair of men's wingtip black shoes and a cuffed pair of pants. That's all I saw. I didn't see the rest of the body. I didn't see anything else but that. And as you can imagine, it really, really scared me. And so I don't know if this was the same man my daughter was talking about. Who knows? But it just so happened that these two incidents weren't too far apart. So as you can imagine, it was very scary for my mom and I, when we saw Dini jumping, and it seemed, like I said, it appeared to be that she was playing with somebody, and then I saw those wingtip shoes in the kitchen area. So
and I pointed right that day. I kept saying the man.
Yeah, you kept saying the man, and like I said, to this day it's a mystery. I mean, it's who knows what you saw, but nonetheless, it put us on edge. And so, like you said, there was other occurrences that happened and incidents in that house, but those are the two that I experienced.
Right.
And so scary.
Well, I think there were multiple things in that home. And this was, who knows, maybe one of them, one of many, I think. That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you're saying that I had this experience, whatever it was. It could have been, who knows, it could have been an imaginary friend, but I don't know. But considering the history of that home, I'm going to say that I saw something. And thank goodness that I can't remember, because I was like 2 years old at the time.
Right. And being that you were that age, I mean, at that age you really don't know the difference between what is fantasy or fake and what's real. So you were acting out like, it seemed to me anyway, like there was somebody there that was
interacting with
you, playing with you. The only thing that both of us, Mom and I, found out that was weird was that you wrapped yourself around the drapes.
So I was frightened. I was scared.
I think at the beginning you were scared of whatever you encountered, but then you started jumping like somebody was either asking you to jump or because you seemed to be very entertained. So who knows?
And I wasn't drinking at the time. I hadn't smoked anything.
You weren't smoking or drinking at 2.
Right.
Thank God.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
That didn't happen until I was 4.
Yeah, correct.
Anyway, so going back to what I mentioned a little while ago, that it's interesting that I saw whatever it was that I saw as a little girl, and then you also saw something when you were a little girl, but you were older. You were about 5. Right?
Yeah, I was around 5 or 6.
You were living with the family, Mom, Dad, your 2 brothers. You're living over there, south side, Stone Avenue in the barrio. You guys are living in 3-room apartment.
Correct.
And to clarify, 3-room, not 3-bedroom.
Right.
3-room.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a 3-room, very small apartment off Stone Avenue there. And I was I fell asleep on the couch. And Mom, Dad, and my 2 brothers were sharing the same bedroom. And for whatever reason, I was left to sleep on the couch. But anyway, so I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was a living room, then there was the kitchen, then the bedroom. So when I awoke, and Mom always kept a dim light in the kitchen, so when I woke up, I saw what appeared to me to be a man. I refer to him as the Mud Man, because that's exactly what he looked like.
He was covered in mud.
He was covered in mud, and he was standing next to the kitchen stove, and he was looking towards me.
I've never asked you this question. Was he clothed?
Well, like I said, it was just a dim light. So, I mean, my memory, that happened like 60-some years ago.
Right. We're talking circa 1958.
No, this was the image that I saw was a pretty good sized man that appeared to be made out of mud, I guess.
And he was, you said, you described him, he was tall, he was kind of bulky?
Right, kind of bulky, yeah. So needless to say, I mean, I wasn't dreaming. I was awake. And when I saw that, I mean, you can imagine, I went hysterical, screaming. And poor Dad, he got out of bed. And as soon as Dad came towards me, the image disappeared.
So whatever it was, just
So whatever
vanished.
it was,
It didn't
vanished.
run out. It wasn't like some crazy guy
No.
got into the house.
No, and it wasn't Halloween, so I who knows?
Right, he wasn't going trick or treating as the Mudman.
No, he
it
wasn't.
was just something.
And to this
very
day,
weird.
it's very vivid. Very vivid, like it just happened yesterday. And so that was over 60 some years ago.
I've always loved this story. I've always thought that it was very creepy. But what makes it even extra creepy, I mean, putting aside you seeing this thing in your home, but I always thought it was very interesting and creepy that even at 5 years old, I mean, obviously you were going to be scared regardless, but at 5 years old you knew that whatever this was not there for a good reason.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, this was definitely evil. And thank goodness I never ever, because we lived there for a while, so I never had another. He never came around again.
Mm-hmm.
Scared the life out of me. But again, to this day, I do recall, and I was very scared. I was very scared, frightened by this, and
it's just one of those things that happens in your childhood, and you just never forget it.
Never.
It's always there, and it'll always be there. So speaking of childhoods, I'm going to segue into our story about the Copper Queen Hotel. And the reason I say childhood is because there's a legend about the Copper Queen Hotel, which is located in Bisbee, Arizona, for those of you who are listening and don't know. There's a legend about a little boy named Billy, and he allegedly haunts the Copper Queen. I believe they told us that his mother worked there, and he drowned in the nearby San Pedro River. I think that was right.
I think
something
so.
like that.
Yeah.
But he's drawn to water, and he haunts the hotel. I mean, he's been seen, by staff, he's been heard. So let's go to the Copper Queen in Bisbee back in, what was it, 2016?
Yeah,
we attended a family wedding there.
Mm-hmm.
We get to the Copper Queen. We check in. And they give us a key, right? I remember it because there was no, I think it was a key.
Right, it was. It's nothing modern.
Right.
Nothing modern, just
so then
old stuff.
We proceed to get onto the oldest elevator in the universe. I think Moses took that elevator up to Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
And you held your breath the whole time.
Yes, I did, because I'm so claustrophobic, and I thought that elevator ride took like an hour.
Right. So the elevator doors open. We walk out to the creepiest ass hallway.
Dim lit.
I mean, you talk about, I thought we were going to turn the corner and see the twins from The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
It was just long and creepy and dimly lit, of course. We get to our room, and when we get there, there's a wooden plaque on the door that said Billy's room. And you didn't know what that was. My dad didn't know what that was. I recognized it. I'm like, oh my God, because I remember seeing an episode of, I think it was Ghost Adventures or one of those ghost shows. And they did an investigation inside of that very room. So then I said to you, of course they would give us this room. This is like this, the most haunted room in the hotel. And we kind of had a laugh about it. But we weren't really thinking creepy ghost. We weren't there for that. We were there to have a good time, to attend a wedding. And we sort of put it in back of our minds, no big deal. Right?
Right.
So we go downstairs. We attend the wedding. We party hardy. We come back to the room, I'm going to say about 1 a.m. and I'm pretty sure between 2:30, 3 o'clock, because there's two, so let me describe the room. So there's two beds. There's a bed near the bathroom, and then there's a bed near the wall. I was in the bed near the wall, and up against that wall was our mini water cooler that we had taken up. We put water in there, beer, who knows what we put in there. Anyway, and it was around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it woke me up, the sound of somebody sticking their hand and fishing through that cooler, or, you know, swishing around. And I could hear the ice and things were moving. I woke up. It was so loud it woke me up. And I thought that it was you or Dad that had gotten up to get a water or something. And when I sat up, I looked. Well, there was no one there. Well, I started fishing around for my phone, and I put the flashlight thing on there, and of course there's no one there. Then with all my movement and doing whatever I was doing, I woke you up. And then we started having a conversation, and I told you what I'd heard. And so shortly after that, we're in the middle of a conversation, and I heard clear as day, and I just want to specify for those of you listening, it wasn't a sound that was coming from another room. It wasn't a sound coming from down the hall. It was literally right next to me, and it sounded like a child sobbing. Mm-hmm. Not a full crying, but like a sob. It happened really fast, but I heard it. Then I asked you. Remember when I asked you? I said, yes. Did you hear that?
Yes.
And you said, no, I didn't hear anything. Then we kept talking, and then it happened again, and then this time you heard it. Mm-hmm. And it was loud.
Very loud.
It was not the kind of sound that was like, oh, it's a little kid in another room down the hall, or it was in the room. Whatever it was in the
present.
It was in the room with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we kind of freak out a little bit, and I don't know, what was it, like 30 seconds, a minute later, we hear, well, you tell them what we heard.
So soon after that, we heard like a kid, a young child, was outside the door in the hallway running back and forth.
It was like little footsteps, like a little kid running down the hall.
It was not an adult. It was not an adult. It was a child.
No, and
now you got to remember, it was about between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sure there wasn't a child out there running the hallway.
No, I think I even got up and I looked. There was no one in that hallway.
No, so I find that very interesting that we heard the water, the ice in the water cooler swish around. Then we heard the child's moaning, sobbing, and then we hear this child outside our door in the hallway running. And this child was not walking in the hallway; he was running back and forth.
I remember when because I posted this story on Facebook the following day, and I remember I got a lot of comments, and one of the most common things people were saying to me were like, "Why did you guys stay in there?" Like, oh, hell no, I would have. But at that moment that something like this happens, and that happens with all paranormal experiences, you can't even believe it yourself. So it's like this fight of your brain going, no, this isn't happening. You kind of go through all these scenarios. Well, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, maybe I was dreaming, maybe, but because it's weird to hear something like that and knowing there's not a kid in the room with us. There's not a kid
No.
There wasn't a kid in the hallway.
No. Not at 2 o'clock in the morning.
No. Not at 2. And especially not alone. Like if we would have heard, a mom or dad go, hey, don't be running in the hallway or something.
Yeah.
No, it was...
No, it was definitely a ghostly
experience or something.
Experience that we had.
And, and to be perfectly honest, I mean, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. We weren't going to get up.
No.
pack her shit and then drive all the way back to Tucson.
Even
Especially
though-
trying to get Dad to get up and going, we're leaving because
No.
there's a ghost. He would have
No.
laughed. He would have
Yeah,
said, be
right.
quiet and go to
Right.
sleep.
So what I heard that some of the guests that attended the wedding, they heard some interesting sounds or ghostly sounds as well, and they packed up in the middle of the night and they left.
Yeah, I don't
The
remember who exactly it was, so I don't want to say, but I heard that the following day when we all got up for breakfast, we started kind of telling everybody, oh my God. And we had like 2 or 3 family members said, I heard something too.
No.
And then somebody, one of the family members, they couldn't take it.
Right.
Whatever they heard, whatever they saw,
Mm-hmm.
they packed their stuff and were gone. They were out of there.
In the middle of the night.
So
Yeah.
if you ever want to spend a night in a haunted place, and I think the Copper Queen is where you need to go, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. If you're into that and you want to experience something like that, because when we arrived and when Dini told me about Billy, I was focusing on the event, and I just kind of put it, like you said, in the back of my mind. So, I mean, not, and hoping that I wouldn't hear anything.
Right.
And, of course, we're sharing what we heard.
Mm-hmm.
So, indeed, I am going to say that I personally experience noises and ghostly noises coming from our room.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very scary.
It was very scary. And if anybody, you can go now to the Copper Queen, and they have like journals of people that have had paranormal experiences in their room. And if you want, I think, or if you can probably ask them, where's the journal for August of 2016, and you'll find my entry that I wrote down of what the story I just told. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of cool that's always going to be there, so long as they keep those journals.
Yeah, well, this was an April wedding, so...
Was it April?
Yeah, it was in April.
Oh, I thought it was August.
I think it was April, March, April, something like that.
Okay, my bad.
But regardless, whatever it was...
But it was 2016.
Right, it was, 2016.
And you can find my entry if you go searching.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so for our final cuento, our final story, we're going to go back in time again to the early 80s, 81, around there. And we had gone to visit our family in Sahuarita. And you and Nana decided to bring a bunch of my cousins back to Tucson
For a sleepover.
for a sleepover.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 6 kids? I don't know what you guys were thinking.
I don't remember.
So it was like
but
6
it was at
kids.
least 5 or 6 little ones.
5 or 6 little kids, all under the age of 12. So we all get in Nana's old, I think it was a 1975 Ford Elite.
It's a tank.
Built like a tank. We all hop in. You're driving. You have like 3 kids in the front seat. I'm in the, my grandma's in the back seat with 3 other kids. We left Sahuarita. What would you say, about 7, 8 o'clock?
No, probably not that late, but it was dark already. So
Okay, so the sun had gone down. It was,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So we're heading back to Tucson. We're on the I-19,
traveling.
and you go ahead and...
Yeah, so we're traveling down I-19, going towards coming down to Tucson, and of course back 40-some years ago. I mean, it's totally pitch dark now. Well, you can imagine what it was 40 years ago. But anyway, so I'm driving along, and then all from out of nowhere, which my first thought or second was when this happened, that somebody had just passed me, and they had lost a white sheet, maybe something they were covering when they were traveling,
Or a tarp.
or a tarp or something that hit our windshield. So I thought, oh my God, thank God I didn't lose it. I kept focused, and I kept driving along down the road. And then after that, like maybe a second or 2 later, I realized what I had seen, or what we had seen, and it was like a big white colored bird wing. Now, that covered pretty much most of the windshield. So you can imagine, I had precious cargo with me, and this happened in the middle of nowhere.
Right, and I remember everybody in that car screaming their heads off.
Right, because they were kids and they were startled.
I
was, and my mom
I don't
was.
remember seeing anything because I was too young. I think I was 5, but I do remember the sound it made when it hit
Right.
our windshield, and I just remember everybody just screaming their heads off. And to this day, because we could say it was a barn owl, it was just a huge hawk, but people that are listening right now, I want you to go look up a 1975 Ford Leaf. It was not a...
It wasn't a small vehicle.
It wasn't a tiny car. It
No.
wasn't like a bug, or it was a big car. And for that thing to cover the whole entire windshield and the impact, thank goodness it didn't crack the windshield, because we would have gotten in a horrible accident.
Because mainly it was like a swoop. It wasn't like it hit directly the windshield. Thank God, because I wouldn't be telling the story. But it's definitely a very, very mysterious and rare incident that occurred.
It came down in a swooping motion.
Like a swooping motion. And I'll never forget that. And in fact, couple of my cousins that witnessed this with me, my young cousins, to this day, they talk about it and they don't forget about it.
Yeah.
It was that impressionable. So the following day, I contacted, I don't remember now, but I do recall I contacted either somebody at the university or some resource, and I told them what we had experienced, and the gentleman that I spoke to, he said, well, that's kind of odd. He said, because in the desert area here in southern Arizona, he said, now this was 40-some years ago, he said, we don't have a native bird that would have a wingspan
that long,
that long
large,
and white in color. He said, it could have been an eagle, it could have been a hawk.
Mm-hmm.
He said, who knows? But normally they're not white in color.
Or that huge.
Huge.
There's certain birds that are that huge, but
right. And my understanding,
it's like freaking pterodactyl hit our car.
Yeah,
it was huge.
So who knows? But again, this happened over 40 years ago, and I have witnesses to that, young witnesses to that, and thank God I didn't lose it, and I just kept driving. And
do you remember? Well, I guess this is kind of a stupid question, but do you remember it making any sound? Was there a screech? There was no.
No
it was
sound at all. Out of nowhere. This came towards us out of nowhere. Nowhere.
And it'll always be
a mystery
of what it was. And just to let everyone know, we're talking about this as Los Cuentos, and we're not saying it was a ghost, we're not saying it was an alien, we're not saying, but it's a matter of driving in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and it's so dark outside, and just something like that happening and just scaring the hell out of you.
Absolutely.
And never forgetting about it.
No, I will never forget that. I will never forget that. And again, I thank God that nothing happened to us, that I was able to maintain my
You're cool. You kept your cool.
And I kept going. I mean, God forbid this would happen now. I would probably go in a ditch somewhere.
No, you'd handle it. You'd handle it.
Yeah. But, indeed, it's engraved in my memory. And like I said, who knows?
Who knows what it was? That's something we probably will never know.
Mm-mm.
But anyway, That wraps it up for our Cuentos. We hope that you enjoyed listening to our stories on this Halloween. We'd like to wish everyone here listening a very happy Halloween. Be safe, everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay, be safe, have fun, but try to be well and be smart.
And stay off I-19.
And stay off the I-19 with a Mothman or Birdman or whatever the hell's running around there. Okay, everybody, until next time. Bye-bye.